I think about myself as a point guard. I'm supposed to facilitate the knowledge. Okay. I don't need to always be the smartest person in the room.
I see.
When you hire somebody, there's like 3 buckets. I do, we do, and you do.
My buddies tell me all the time, like, oh, I have like this great idea, or like, I should have invented this. But like the great ideas, it doesn't make you money. It's always the implementation or the execution of the great ideas.
I would rather take A+ people and give them B+ processes, and they're gonna outperform A+ processes with B+ people. You can build out the best processes, the best KPIs, whatever, but if you don't work on the person that's doing it, you're not gonna get the most out of them. It's 3 things. Know your numbers, hold the team accountable to the numbers, so that way you can drive vision and do what the CEO wants to do.
What's up, guys? Today we have special guest Javi Chavez.
What's up, man? Good to see you.
Dude, I'm so stoked to talk to you today because you're the COO for Pinada Company, which includes like a multiple 7- and 8-figure like companies. And you know, as an entrepreneur, like as we're always looking for somebody to help us on our journey. So like there's like the visionary and integrated role, where there's the guy who comes with all the ideas and the guy who actually does the work to make it happen. You know, I know like if you look at, let's say, Walt Disney or let's say Microsoft, there was like the guy who everybody knows, like Walt Disney or let's say Bill Gates, but there's a guy behind the scenes who was actually making the company run. And you are that guy for like the Pinada Company. So I'm just super stoked to just have you on, get your like your take on things and just like learn about real business, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. So I mean, I started with Ryan as a student, I think, as you know, in 2020. Prior to that, my background was like tech and software. So I was started off as a sales rep and then was helping build sales teams in like the startup space. Found Ryan in 2020, started wholesaling part-time, did that. 2022, him and I were golfing, and I wasn't even looking for a job at that time. Like I was honestly like looking to get coached. I was like, hey dude, like I'm kind of at a crossroads here. Like I could go be a VP of sales or like grow and do that type of thing.
Corporate America, right?
Yeah, corporate America, go that route. Or like I could go build a wholesale business.
Yeah, as an entrepreneur, start your own kind of like company and stuff, right?
Exactly. So I was like, I'm kind of at a crossroads here. Like, what do I do? And he was building out our parent company, Pinada Company now. Back then, we didn't have anything. And he needed a sales manager. And that's kind of where my expertise was. He needed somebody who understood corporate. So that way we could do like the coaching, all the other stuff that we do, and somebody who understood real estate. And I was like, well, this makes perfect sense. And so... fast forward, almost 3 years later.
Why did you choose, like, because like, you had an opportunity to become like an investor yourself, right? Like you were successfully wholesaling, you were seeing like success. It wasn't like you couldn't do it. Like you had the opportunity to become your own entrepreneur investor. Why did you choose to become like a COO under Ryan instead? You know,
I think I still would consider myself pretty entrepreneurial.
Okay,
but at the time I felt like the upside, that I would learn just being in this environment was like the opportunity made a lot of sense. And then the worst case is if and when I do decide to part ways with Ryan, right? I have all of this opportunity and all this information that I can go take into my next role, right? And I get to learn on someone else's dime. I also had to make
that's a really good point too, I think. Like, so.
And I'm about to turn 30 this year, so I'm relatively young. So I think like the opportunity to like be around all the other people, right? I mean, we have. Over the years, we've had Grant Cardone come in the office, Russell Brunson.
And you get to go to their offices too, right?
Exactly, right? So Andy Elliott, I get to absorb all the information from all these people that I wouldn't get otherwise. Like I could go be if I would have went the wholesale route, I could have I would have made more money probably in the short term. But I would have stayed at
your skill level wouldn't have been at that. So the thing is like when you strike out on your own, like you're a peer group and you're spending all your time like in the weeds, not really like learning and improving. It's just you're doing work, right? Especially when you're first starting. But then by being a part of Pinada Company, now you're exposed to so much more. You see the bigger picture of how an 8-figure business actually works and runs. So you have the blueprint to create your own 8-figure company if you, let's say, you ever want to go out and strike on your own.
Exactly, right? And that's the benefit. And even if I were to go the corporate America route without being here, it would have taken me probably another 4 or 5 years of like working up the ladder to go do it. So I was like, okay, I can go learn how to go build a big business very quickly and with somebody that I know, like, and respect and just get all that experience to go, like you said, do it on my own.
That's also another good point, I think. So when you look at, let's say, the corporate America route, you have to put in time. Like, it just, even if you're really good, you don't advance that quickly, right? There's political things, other things, but when you're with like a more like, I guess, startup company or like a more from the ground up, there's so much opportunity for you to step into bigger roles, to take on more responsibility. And if you're producing, then like you're gonna get more opportunities on your plate, right?
Exactly, right? And then that was the benefit of working here. But I would, in corporate America, I would quit my job almost every year for that reason, right? Because I would either get bored, max out my compensation plan or whatever, and I'm like, all right, I got to find the next thing. And I think that's what's helped me kind of like level up and understand like what big companies do, because I've been able to kind of pick and choose from the things that I've worked at, the business I've worked at previously, to now apply that here at Pinada Company as well.
You know, it's funny because I worked at a software development company for like 20 years before I became an investor. But I stayed with the same company the whole time. And then my coworkers, it's very interesting because like every couple of years, like some of the guys, like they leave the company, they go to another job, they take a big pay raise there, right? And then like they stay for there a couple of years and they switch to another company, take another big pay raise. Then they come back to our company with a big pay raise. And I was like, dude, like, I feel like you're gaming the system, you know? But I mean, like that's exactly what you want to do in corporate America.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, gone are they used to talk about like the gold Rolex, right? Like in the 50s, 60s. So back in the day, you would work at a company for like 20, 30 years. And then they would, like the company would gift you like a gold Rolex. Like that was the thing like that you would aspire towards, or you would stay loyal. And so people like, I feel like our parents, in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s would stay at a company for a really long time expecting a big payout. That's the thought, right? But these days, you can't stay at a company that long. Most people can't stay at a company long enough to see the results of that. Because you have to go jump to the next thing. Because another company is going to pay you more, like you said, get a big pay raise, and then eventually you can come back to the company at a higher level.
I mean, I was at the company for 20 years, and honestly, financially, I don't have much to show for it. Like, I mean, I become a better like developer, like but I mean, like as far as like financially, there wasn't much to show for it. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
But jumping into like the COO role, so like and so like I hear like my buddies tell me all the time like, oh, I have like this great idea, or like I thought of that before, like so and so did, like I should have invented this. But like the great ideas, it doesn't make you money. It's always the implementation or the execution of the great ideas, which is what a COO brings to like a visionary, right? And so like as the COO of Pinada Company, what exactly is like your focus, and like what is like your day-to-day kind of look like?
So when I look at my personal COO role for like in this organization versus where it would be somewhere else, I would say I'm more so like a chief revenue officer for what we do here, right? And there's a lot of ops that still go into it, but my job really is just to drive revenue and make sure that we're doing the things, like you said, the vision gets cast by Ryan, and then I have to go execute. But because we're so sales and marketing driven, as you know, like that's what a lot of my time is spent on. And then also reducing, churn and losing money on the back end. But I'll walk you through like a week basically, in what we do, right? So Mondays, I make sure, like I get the vision from Ryan. Ryan and I are texting all the time.
So close communication is very important between the two
100%, right? So we speak, I would say like more than I talk to my wife sometimes, honestly.
Well, it's really funny because we were just talking about this with Ryan is like when you work at a job, you actually spend more time with your coworkers than you do with your family. Yeah. So it's like half of your life literally is with your coworkers and your boss or whoever it is. And so like hopefully you like your boss or your coworkers, right?
Yeah, and luckily like my wife and Mindy, or Ryan's wife, are friends. We all kind of like get along because, like you said, you want to be around people that you like. Obviously, you want them to be competent, but the next level is like, do I actually enjoy spending time with these people? So Ryan and I are always chatting, so that way we're like our visions are always pretty aligned. I make a joke that Ryan really doesn't know what I do every day because there's just so much that goes into it.
Which is good. It's good for him, right?
And this is something as far as like leadership goes. There's three when you hire somebody, there's like three buckets, right? I do, we do, and you do.
Can you break that down?
Yeah, and I'm going to break it down. So basically, when you the reason why you're hiring somebody is because you want to get the I do's, the tasks that you do, off your plate, right? So when you bring somebody on, it's almost everything is I do, right? And so now we got to train people to move to the we do bucket, meaning we're going to do this together. I'm going to train you on how to do it, and we're going to walk through it. And then the you do bucket, right? So getting as many tasks off the you do plate into the I do plate to the you do plate, right? And the way you do that is obviously through training. And now the way my relationship with Ryan is, pretty much everything is in the you do plate.
Okay, you're completely like you've got the you do figured out.
Exactly, right? And so now all I do is I just do everything that I need to do, and I report back to Ryan. And then I also come back with like any problems or challenges. That's the time where I'm actually going to reach out and be like, hey, this is what's going on. And then I usually already have a solution. So then I'll be like, hey, this is what I think we should do. What do you think? And then he'll give us our feedback, and we'll go from there.
So, I mean, just to break, I mean, I know we're going to walk more into your week.
Yeah.
But just just thinking through this process, like, because, like, you're the guy who's implementing, right? Like, every day, you're still getting the vision from Ryan, and, like, but then you're coming up with your own solutions. Like, why do we even need Ryan for? You know?
Well, here's a great example, right? Sometimes I'm so in the weeds still, or like looking at the numbers. I need somebody that can think strategically about like on the business, or like and really figure out things that I wouldn't have seen. So a good example of this is on our education and our like just coaching and lead side, right? We would have leads come in every single day, and our tech team, they would have a different like lead tag basically. And again, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds, but I didn't catch it. Like I was just going through and I was like, something looks off here. And then Ryan came in and was like, oh, like this is why, right? So because he isn't so focused on all the other stuff, right? I'm dealing with HR issues. I'm dealing with training the sales team. He's still able to come in and see things that I wouldn't have seen.
And he also has bandwidth, I think, to be able to do that. Because I feel like as an entrepreneur, a lot of times we're playing both roles, right? We're like a visionary and the COO at the same time. And so when you were so focused on the day-to-day, we don't have like the space to just think and try and solve some of the things or even notice some of these things are happening.
Exactly. And that's where, even if you are just like, you're not at the place where you can hire a COO, I think it's so important for people to like dedicate time just to thinking about the business and thinking, how can I improve these specific things within the company, right? Because I think that's huge as far as just growth in general. Yeah. So I think like we go.
So Monday you meet with Ryan.
Monday I'm chatting with Ryan throughout the weekend, whatever, right? Monday we come in, we have our company meeting. Ryan runs that. Then we jump in, like I'm very involved in sales, so we jump into real estate sales team. I'm training them. I train them daily at 9:00, and
so how do you? Because I mean, you're still young, and like you weren't in sales before. How can you train or have like the skill set to do all these things? You know?
Yeah, well, luckily sales was the one thing that I was in. The ops side is something that I've had to like learn and get better at. But yeah, like I wholesaled before. Like I did it at I would say a pretty high level. So. One, I do my best to learn and train, and if I don't know something, I'm gonna like input as much information as possible. But the thing that I've realized too is my job is more so like I think about myself as a point guard, right? Like I'm supposed to facilitate the knowledge. I don't need to always be the smartest person in the room.
I see.
Right. So that's the big thought. So especially
you're kind of, I mean, sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah.
But like I mean, like as a point guard, you're kind of like distributing like the hey, like you research this, you figure this out. I do just make sure that it's getting done. You're kind of orchestrating it as opposed to being like the complete expert in every situation.
Exactly. And I don't think if you are the complete expert in every situation in your business, you don't have the right people in place. Right. So you shouldn't be like, for example, in sales, I'm not the best salesperson, right? Michael Smith upstairs is a way better closer than me, right? So my job is in these sales meetings is to get him to extract knowledge. So I'm asking, hey, Michael, what do you think about that, what they just said? Like when we listen to calls. Hey, Michael, how would you do this? Or I'm asking the other people, why did you do it this way? So that way, my job is just to extract information from the person that knows the most in that situation and ask good questions. So that's really what I focus on. And then we do that. I do the exact same thing with my were you gonna ask me a question?
Yeah, no. Keep going. So.
Then I do the exact same thing with our education and our coaching sales team. Same thing. I'm asking the top performers there, hey, what's going on?
I really like that point guard analogy. That's a really good one.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny because I started to think about it more this year. Was really when I'm like, that's really what I'm trying to do. Is just like I consume the information and then I have to pass it off and then get the right things done. And you know, the stats, like I'm not on the top of the leaderboard with closing or with the other things, but if I have the most assists, we're winning, right? And then after I do my sales stuff, I meet with our marketing and then our ops team. Now, one thing that we've really focused on this year is over communication. What we found, and this happens as businesses grow, and you probably even have it in your own business, you reach something, you make a decision here with this group of people, but this other group of people have no idea what you're doing, right? The left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing.
Yeah.
So we've really focused on getting everybody in a room at least once a week just to make sure that everyone's on the same page, right? So we'll have finance, marketing, I guess I count as sales, like sales leadership, all in one room, just going through our weekly tasks. And most people, like, I get a lot of questions about, hey, what's the best project management tool, all this. We use a Google
spreadsheet?
No, not even, just a Google Doc.
Okay.
Right? Because that's the only thing we could get Ryan to do. Like we had Asana, we had all these project management tools.
It's funny because like in our company, we were constantly trying to like do more things. We just hired like some people to put all these fancy automations and everything. But like now, like when things break or people can't understand how to use it and stuff, like it's like super unproductive. So actually, like I'm in the process of like super simplifying everything. And so like instead of all these fancy things, like Google Sheets and Google Docs, like, it's crazy how like efficient and productive you can be with just like simple tools.
Yeah, like the best productivity tool is the one you use.
Yeah,
like that's the way I look at all of it. Is you can get really far with Google Doc, Google Sheet, and a cell phone. Like you don't need all this other stuff. It's helpful, but it can bog people down, especially because people have to look multiple places to get something done. Right? If I need to look at Slack, a project management tool, and still use my Google Doc, like there's too many different places for information to get lost.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. So we try to do that. So we get everyone on the same page. Then after that, I have another meeting for like our Kingdom, which is our nonprofit.
Okay,
so
okay. This is all on Monday.
All Monday. I stack my Mondays, all meetings.
Is there a reason why you do everything on Monday?
From what I've found is it's easiest to report on the previous week and then set the goals for the following week. Some other companies, and if you have the bandwidth, you do Mondays and Fridays, right? So that way Fridays you can do like, hey, how do we do this week? But for me, I think just if from an efficiency standpoint, Monday's way better, where I can just do report from last week and then set the goals for this week. That's the main reason. And then the daily meetings are with the sales team. I meet with them every day just because it's so important for our business. And then after that, it's really just like I field a lot of stuff. I'm like the filter for Ryan, right? Like I said, HR, like team problems, that's the next chunk of my day is like working with the sales team, keeping them motivated, and then just any other stuff that comes in, right?
Can you give an example of like what other stuff there might be?
So, for example, I had a girl on our team. She was feeling overwhelmed with the amount of workload that she has. So I'm like, okay, so how do I help you just either be more efficient, or do I have to take things off your plate to move them to somebody else? So that type of stuff.
So as a COO, you're wearing like so many hats. Like you're making sure things are getting done revenue wise. You're training. You're being a reporting guide for all these different teams. But you're also like solving like HR problems or like personnel. Sometimes maybe you're like a life coach or something.
The thing that I've realized the most in this role, or just being a leader in general, is the amount of soft skills required. Meaning being able to like understand what a person needs in a moment to help get them the most productivity possible and extract as much value out of their 8 hours a day that you get, right? So that's, you can build out the best processes, the best KPIs, whatever, but if you don't work on the person that's doing it, you're not going to get the most out of them.
So I mean, soft skills I feel like it's a very broad term. Can you kind of break down into like what the soft skills kind of like entail?
I think no matter what, you should learn how to sell at some capacity. And I'll kind of wrap up this, tie in how I think this ties into soft skills. But if you understand how to sell your idea, your thought on what you want this person to do, the more effective you will be as a leader, right? So you need to be able to understand what these person's concerns are, right? So that would be soft skill number one, is just like active listening, understand what they're doing, and then be able to position your solution in a way that makes sense for them. Because there's a lot of difficult conversations that need to come up as a COO or as just any leader. You're gonna have to, why aren't you performing well? And I can't just walk in and be like, hey, your KPIs suck. Like, why aren't you doing what you're supposed to do? Or, hey, I need to get more out of you. Or, hey, I'm gonna ask you to work longer hours for these events that we do. Like, so how do you keep that morale up? It's by active listening. It's by taking all their feedback in, and even if you don't use their feedback, this is another piece that I do a lot. Right, I'll get client feedback, or I'll get the team's feedback on a specific product or on a new change that we've made. it's important that you listen, but you don't have to always do what they want you to do.
You want to make sure you're hearing people's and like they're able to voice the concerns. Even
Correct.
with my wife, sometimes she'll like go off on something, and then I'm like, I'm just listening. I learned this like from like many times, as opposed to just trying to solve the problem. Then, thank you for listening, right? And just once someone feels heard, then like even if you don't like maybe not can always agree or use their solution, at least it's like, okay, like we understand, we're kind of on the same page. We hear you. Like now, let's figure this out together.
Absolutely. Like the biggest thing that has helped us over the last year is over communication, especially when you're pivoting and making changes. Early on in my like leadership career, I would give the team like little pieces, little breadcrumbs, and because I didn't think that they needed to hear the entire picture, and I didn't want to like stress them out. So I'd be like, hey, this is all you need to know, and now let's go execute. But the team they would feel kind of ping-ponged around, especially when we make a lot of changes.
They feel like they're a part of the whole thing.
Yeah, so now, anytime that we have a new initiative or we have a goal, the whole team knows this is where we want to go. This is our revenue goal, this is our churn goal, or this is our deal goal, whatever it is. And so that way we can be very clear on where we want to go, and I'm going to keep getting feedback from the team, and that's the other thing that I do in these meetings. It's not just me talking at them. I'm trying to get feedback as well.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. So it's like, hey, before I even talk about coaching or whatever else, like within these like training meetings or whatever, what are you guys seeing? So we're trying, and then I'll also let them know, hey, we're trying a new marketing channel. We're upping the ad spend. Let me know what you guys see. And then I start with feedback from them before I speak.
This is really convicting for me. I feel like I have to have more of these listening meetings too, but also like conveying vision, I think, a lot of times, or showing the bigger picture. For me, I'm the exact same way where I'm like, I don't want to stress people out and like tell them like all the things we're planning. So I just like, hey, here's what we need to know. But I think to your point, I think it would be helpful for people to like, once they see the bigger picture, it's easier for them to buy into
for
what
sure.
we're doing.
Like obviously don't tell them about all the problems, because if
that's a good point. So I mean, you want to share the vision, but not share all the problems.
Correct. Yeah, you want to like share the big picture vision. Or, for example, right, we want to do $500,000 a month at the real estate business.
Okay.
$300,000 comes from wholesale and novations and like direct to seller marketing, and then $200,000 in flip profit every month. Right. So that's what we're going to tell the team. This is our big picture target. Then, in order to get there, sales, you guys are responsible for 2 contracts per person per week. Right. So now you guys have your set metrics and your set stuff that you guys need to do. Right. And then once we know that 500,000 is the goal, right, we put that on the dashboard. Everybody can rally behind this specific number to go out and go execute on it. And the same thing on our back end. For our team, churn is really important right now on the coaching side. So that's a big initiative. Like, hey, we want to keep our churn below 10%. So then everybody on the team knows, hey, are the decisions that I am making helping that specific metric? And if it doesn't, then I shouldn't be making those types of decisions, right? If does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like it's a way for them to kind of gauge or set priorities, because once they see the bigger picture why, now they can like kind of like orchestrate like their time accordingly to, okay, like does this help the bigger vision, or is this just like kind of like busy work?
Yeah, and so for example, right, before I had the churn number, my support team would get it. They would get somebody back, and they would either let them cancel, or they would think that we're just trying to keep them because we want to make money. That's not necessarily the case. We want to make sure that the product's valuable, right? So once we put the churn metric in place, and we said why we want to do this, we want to make the product better, we want to make the experience better. So now we're doing multiple touch points before they even get to the point where they might churn, right? So just once you put the metric in place and why, then everything else kind of lines up, if that makes sense. Yeah, so that's a big focus. Let's see, what else do I do all day? And then I do
take some naps.
Yeah, just scroll through TikTok. And then afterwards I do have some time for me, and then that's where now I can actually work on the business as well, right? So now I'm looking at how can I make my sales process better. I'm seeing if there's like different cracks in like our funnel, or hey, if this person's overperforming and overachieving, how can I get the rest of the team there? So that's where like I now can be strategic on like the things that are important to me. For example, like figuring out, hey, how can I reduce our churn? How can I up the budget, and making sure, and I'm reverse engineering our numbers, right? So if we want to get 2 contracts, how many leads do each person need to get? Are they getting those leads? Then getting feedback from the team, hey, are those leads good? Are we hitting our numbers, et cetera?
So do you feel like when you first started as like in your position with like 2022 versus now, like what have you like developed as like a skill sets or knowledge? Like, how is Javi 2025 different than Javi 2022?
I'm a better recruiter.
Okay.
What I've realized is the people are the most important thing in the entire business. So I tried delegating recruiting out.
Why is that? Like,
Why are the people the most important?
Yeah.
The people are the most important because I would rather take like A+ people and give them B+ processes, and they're going to outperform A+ processes with B+ people, if that makes sense. Because you will get more out of those people if you attract top talent, you keep top talent, they're going to outperform everybody else. And then if I can give them A+ processes and I get A+ people, it's game over. We're going to crush everybody else, right? And the morale of a company is something that is kind of underrated, I think. And like you talked about with Ryan, but the emotional paycheck that people get, right? That's why people are willing to rally behind something and go out and go achieve something. So, and on the flip side, if you get one person that's negative in your business, it's literally cancer. It's literally the worst thing ever. And I know Gary Vee talked about it too. He's like, if I have a salesperson who's doing 200% of his quota, but he's bad for the culture, I am going to fire that person, right? And I believe that 100% as well.
Have you guys had some like bad culture fits in the past?
Absolutely. And it starts small with like you start hearing little things about that person, or they're like, hey, they're being negative, or you can just tell like when somebody's like not bought into the culture. And yeah, I've had to let those people go.
Does that hurt morale though? I mean, just curious, like, so whenever you have to like, let's say, let somebody go, and then like, are other people in the company like, oh no, like they feel like more scared because like, you know?
Again, it comes back to over communication. Okay. So and I've done this. Like, so Javi 2022 would do it this, like the old way, and how I fire people now is totally different. So in 2022, I would just cut somebody. Okay. And there wouldn't be much communication
with the other team members.
With the other team members, right? Then now, when I let somebody go, I let them know why, right? So for example, we had somebody who we really liked on the team, and she was our copywriter, Lauren. She was great. Like, there's nothing wrong, but I had to let her go because we just talked about AI, and now I can have ChatGPT do a big bulk of her job, unfortunately. So we let Lauren go. She still stayed on as a contractor, so we still work with her, and we've done our best to get her clients. But then I had to go communicate to the team, hey, we let Lauren go. This is why. This is the situation. So now I'm just over communicating why I had to make a business decision.
And so
go ahead.
This is like a very mature leadership move. Because in like culture, like you're saying, is so important. So being able to like find a way to like take like a negative or it might be perceived as a negative and making sure that people understand what's going on behind the scenes.
Exactly, right? And then there have been times where I've had to make decisions that were strictly financially based that were going to impact culture in a negative way. And so, for example, in 2023 we had 100 employees. We're down to 40 right now. And we just realized, like, hey, the market's shifting. Things are going to change. We cannot sustain the amount of people that we have right now. I think I had to let something like 20 people go.
Wow.
That's
like not fun conversation.
No, it was terrible. But we knew that if we repositioned in a certain way, we would be better for it. And fast forward to where we're at 2024, like we're leaner, we're a lot more efficient, and the business is in a way better position, and we're doing more with less people. So you do have, and then obviously those conversations aren't good, and I think that's helped me. That really, I don't even want to say it. Like, I'm trying to figure out how to say it, but I'm happy that the situation happened because it made me better.
It's a growing moment. Yeah. I mean, it's always whenever we have challenges or face obstacles. Yeah. After you overcome them, you always become a better version.
Exactly. Right? So it's made me a better communicator, and going through all that stuff made me realize I have to over communicate why we make decisions as a business, and then of course casting vision, saying, hey, because we did these negative things, we're going to be in a way better and positive situation for 2025 or moving on into the next situation. So that's really what a lot of my day or a lot of my time is spent on, is like making sure that morale and the company is positioned and like the team feels like we're going in the right direction. And if we aren't, then I have to get their feedback and then help reroute the ship. a little bit.
You know, so I mean, like when you're, let's say, like a newer entrepreneur, like they really have to wear both hats, and so like they have to learn to become their own COO in the very beginning, right? So if you're kind of like they're talking to like let's say a newer entrepreneur investor, and they need to like put on the COO role for like their themselves first, and then if they hire like one or two people slowly to expand. What's kind of like the best way to grow into that process?
So the first steps that you absolutely have to do is just know your numbers. If you know your numbers, then you can reverse engineer everything else. So understand like, hey, how much revenue do I need to make, and then what are the KPIs that I need to be monitoring in order for my business to be successful, right? You know, very simple. Cost per lead, cost per contract. If we're talking about real estate, and cost per deal. If you know those three things, you can set it up. So that way you don't have to always be in the day-to-day. You can just look at a dashboard and be like, oh, wait, something's off here. I need to go in and course correct.
So a lot of times it's like you're trying to build like a little mini machine, whether you're in it or you're hiring people inside. And then like your job as a CEO to kind of like making sure the machine's running. And then when it's not running, like now that's when you have to come inside and problem solve.
Exactly, right? Because the worst thing that you can do as a new business owner is wait until the end of the week, the end of the month, and you're like, where'd the money go? Like I hired these people and they didn't perform. So when you are able to track like the daily numbers and the weekly numbers, then at that point you can go diagnose something. Hey, if we have 3 days of poor performance, we can jump in right away as opposed to having to wait till the end of the week, end of the month.
Got it.
So that will help you just be an effective like in the day leader. So that way you can focus your time on, like we said, building the business or working on the business, not in it. But the only way you do that is if you know your numbers and you have a good way to track them on a repeatable basis. So I think that's super important. And then I think Ryan's capable of doing the soft skill stuff, right? Like I think he can totally fire people. He can totally connect and motivate. But when you're new, you're gonna have to wear both hats. So. You know, Gary was just talking about it at our All-Star Mastermind today, where, you know, there's somebody that has to be able to drive the change and hold people accountable. So that really is me, right? So Ryan, luckily now is just a fun guy, right?
It's like good cop, bad cop kind of thing.
Literally, right? So I'm a pretty nice bad cop, but I still have to be bad cop sometimes and be like, guys, like this isn't doing well. And so what I would recommend for new entrepreneurs is in the beginning, you're gonna have to be like the person cracking the whip sometimes, but when you make sure that when you do hire a COO, they have the ability to do that. Like that is the main thing that a COO needs to do is be able to drive the business forward. That's gonna be the most important thing and hold people accountable. So it's 3 things. Know your numbers, then hold the team accountable to the numbers so that way you can drive vision and do what the CEO wants to do. That would be like the 3 things that you need to do to start out.
No, so you say that you're more of like a chief revenue officer. Why do you think like the focus is on revenue?
Because that's the lifeblood of a business, right? Like we need money coming in otherwise, right? But for our businesses specifically, right, we are very sales and marketing driven on both sides, right? We're not like a tech company where we have this big, massive product. We don't have engineers, right? So typically with a COO in like one of those companies, they're going to be focused a lot on product and like building out like the programming in the back end.
Because they're getting like venture capital or something, so they have money and so.
Well, they have money, but it's more so what they're selling, right? The product that they're selling requires so much back end build out. So. You know, there's going to be like developers that are going to focus on like their roadmap of what the product rollout, all this other stuff, right? With us, you know, we on the flip and wholesale side, we're buying contracts, we're selling contracts, and we're moving on, right? There's not like a real product. And then even on the flip side, we're developing and we're building the house, and so there is project management there, but it's not a huge undertaking really, right?
When you look at like the importance of like that inside the machine, the actual project management or the house flipping itself is not what drives the revenue.
Exactly. It's sales and marketing. It's how many leads are we getting in? Are we closing? Are we getting contracts, right? So that on that side. And then same thing on the education and the lead gen and all the stuff that we do. Like, right, we do have products now. We have our CRM, we have the deal finding software, all this stuff, but that still is such a small piece of the overall business,
I see,
right?
yeah.
So that's where sales, marketing, and then also like customer success is important. But I would put all those under like revenue. So that's why I say like in this organization,
Yeah,
like if I were to go work for a tech company, my role would probably be like CRO.
I feel like most,
Yeah.
I mean, like most people who will probably listen to this will be like entrepreneurs, right? But
Yeah.
you're gonna, so whether you're like a landscaper or you're a contractor or you're a real estate investor, all of our businesses are like sales or it's like revenue driven, right?
Exactly.
Like we care about like we're not a tech company. Like tech companies are very few and far between that will just focus on the product itself.
Correct, and that's what I'm saying. So that's where like I want to make like that's where this role is so important. Where it's like you said, if they're just general entrepreneurs, landscapers, service based,
Etsy, whatever it is, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you're-
right?
you're
Like
trying to drive sales.
Yeah, drive sales. Like you want more people to know about you. You want more people to buy, and you want more people to buy from you multiple times. Like that's it. So that's what we focus on: is how can we get more people into the top of the funnel? How can we close deals effectively? And then how can we get repeat business or have people on monthly subscriptions or multiple value, right? Like with a house flip or with that, like once they sell their house, they're probably not selling another one, right? But it's just those are the key metrics that I focus on, and don't overcomplicate it too. I think people think about a COO and they're like, oh, this guy's going to be in the numbers and doing all this stuff, but it's just how can we make more money? How can we do it at a lower cost, and how can we make it repeatable?
At what point in like an entrepreneur's career do you think they're ready to hire a COO? You know, I also see a lot of guys who like they want to partner, so they're like, if I'll partner with you, like I'll be the visionary, you be the CEO, like or you be like. I'm just like wondering like what are kind of like at what point should you bring on a COO? You know,
I think you should bring on a COO once you are like at max capacity, and I'll kind of backtrack what I mean. Like in the beginning, you don't need to hire a COO. I know a lot of people outside at our mastermind say, "Yo, that's partner. You'll be my COO, and you'll be this, right?"
I mean, I hear that all the time. So.
Yeah, I hear it all the time, and it's more like what you should hire is like an ops coordinator.
Okay.
Or what you should hire is somebody at a more junior level.
Okay.
You should absolutely like even me. I did not come in as a COO. I came in as a sales manager.
Okay.
Then I moved up. Then I leveled up because I proved myself, and then the business needed what my skill set at that point, right? So when you're looking for somebody, first look for somebody that complements you. That's just general entrepreneurship, right? When your first hire should complement your biggest weakness. That's my opinion, right?
Okay,
So if you're
okay.
if you're a great salesperson, you need to hire somebody who's going to help you handle the back end,
Okay.
right? And then vice versa. So start with like an ops coordinator. Start with somebody that's a little
You
bit.
don't want to title them too high too fast. What you're
Absolutely
saying, so,
not, right? And this is another piece. Every time that I've hired somebody very senior and that from another company to come in, we hired a VP of marketing at one point.
Okay.
We've hired other really high level people and gave them a big salary. Hasn't worked out.
Oh, interesting.
Everybody that we have brought in and promoted from within has worked out. And I think maybe we're a little unique, that like we have a unique culture and and like the businesses are a little unique. So you have to understand the full picture in order for you to be effective. So now, again, if for somebody first starting out, hire an operations coordinator, hire a project manager, hire a sales manager. Start at this base level and then have them work their way up, prove themselves, so that way you're not wasting salary and revenue, et cetera.
I love that. I know we're short on time,
Uh-huh.
but if people maybe just one last piece of advice you can give to somebody who's like a new entrepreneur.
Last piece of advice, besides knowing God, I'd say somebody needs to focus on really just look at your revenue numbers. Business is, people overcomplicate it. There are so many books. There's so many different things that you need to know. But like at the end of the day, it's focus on how can I get more revenue and more revenue in, and that's what's going to make you successful in the long term. And then eventually get good at sales. Like that would be those would be my two. Like focus on revenue, get good at sales at some capacity because you're not just selling a product or whatever you're doing. It's eventually you're going to have to sell the vision to the people that you hire, and then position your product, your situation in a way that people are going to want to get behind, right? The best leaders across all industries are great at casting vision, and then in the day-to-day, they're great at selling, at continuing to sell their employees on why they need to work harder or why we need to get more out of them, right? So, and not just selling in the sense like a Grant Cardone type sale, but like active listening, being able to like do jujitsu basically, take their concerns and then flip it back on them and then tell them why they need to continue to work at the company or continue to grow. So that would be my biggest piece of advice for anyone listening.
Well, if people want to find out more about you or reach out to you, what's the best place?
Yeah, I have my podcast too, at Wealthy Business. So we bring in a bunch of entrepreneurs there. Obviously, www.pinadaco and wealthyuniversity.com. So you can find us there. Cool.
Thank you,
Daniel.
bro. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, man. It was good. Dude, good time.
Yeah, no, super good, super good.